Everyone cried after Rob Reiner's last interview. Robert Norman Reiner is Rob Reiner's full name. In the Bronx, New York City, on March 6, 1947. He grew up in a home where telling stories, performing, and making people laugh were all part of life. Carl Reiner, his father, was a huge name in American comedy. An actor, writer, and director whose work on The Dick Van Dyke Show and Your Show of Shows helped shape the golden age of television. Estelle Reiner, his mother, was an actress and singer with perfect comic timing. Rob Reiner grew raised in an atmosphere that taught him the rhythms of humor, the discipline of writing, and the spirit of working together that comes with performing. Reiner went to film school at UCLA, where his interest in directing and telling stories became more real. He became famous as an actor at first, but it was evident from the start that he wanted to do much more than just perform. In 1971, he had his big break as an actor on the pioneering sitcom All in the Family, where he played Michael Meathead Stick, the outspoken, idealistic, and often combative son-in-law of Archie Bunker. Reiner's acting was funny and very real, and it showed the generational and ideological struggles of the time with insight and sensitivity. Over the course of 8 seasons, the role made him famous and earned him several Emmy nods, making him a part of television history. But instead of staying in a successful acting career, Reiner took the brave choice to go to directing. In the 1980s, he became one of Hollywood's most dependable and intelligent filmmakers. He was known for being able to do well in many different types of movies. Few directors can say they have such a wide variety of skills. This is Spinal Tap, 1984. Reiner co-created a mockumentary that changed the way comedies are made. The movie's funny take on rock culture was so vivid that many people thought it was a real documentary at first. Its impact can still be felt in many comedies that came after it. Reiner's latter movies showed not just how good he was at making movies, but also how well he understood how people interact with each other. The Sure Thing 1985 and Stand By Me 1986 showed how sensitive he was to coming-of-age stories by mixing humor with emotional honesty. Stand By Me, based on a novella by Stephen King, is still one of the most popular movies about friendship, grief, and the delicate time between being a child and an adult. It is still popular today, which shows that Reiner is good at getting real performances and making movie events feel real. Reiner hit a creative pinnacle in the late 1980s and early 1990s that few other directors ever approach. The Princess Bride, which came out in 1987, is a classic fairy tale that kids and adults alike appreciate for its humor, romance, and honesty. When Harry Met Sally of 1989 changed the way we think about modern romantic comedies. It had snappy writing, emotional authenticity, and performances that are still remembered decades later. Reiner showed he could handle suspense and psychological terror with Misery 1990, which won Kathy Bates an Academy Award for her role. He followed this up with A Few Good Men 1992, a courtroom drama that became a cultural standard because it had morally complicated characters and snappy dialogue. Rob Reiner has been a well-known and vocal public figure in addition to his artistic work. He has utilized his platform to speak up for things he believes in, especially in the areas of education, public health, and civic engagement. His political engagement has sometimes caused problems, but it shows that he has always been dedicated to speaking his mind and being honest, just like the character that made him famous on All in the Family. Reiner has never been afraid to say what he believes, even if others disagree with him. Rob Reiner's personal life has been just as interesting and exciting as his long and successful career in Hollywood. He married the outstanding actress and director Penny Marshall in 1971. This marriage brought together two of the most innovative people in the entertainment business. Reiner fully embraced family life. He adopted Marshall's daughter from a previous marriage, actress Tracy Reiner, and welcomed her as his own. Together, they made a blended family full of love and artistic vitality. But the marriage ended in divorce in 1981, which was the end of a very important chapter in his life. Years later, fate would bring Reiner together with the love of his life, photographer Michelle Singer, while he was making the famous romantic comedy When Harry Met Sally. Their bond was so strong that it even affected Reiner's career choices. He notably chose to change the movie's ending, which was a creative choice based on their growing romance. In 1989, the pair got married and started their own family. They had 3 children, 2 sons, Jake and Nick, and a daughter, Romy. Their home became a safe place where love, creativity, and family values could grow together with Reiner's successful work. Reiner and Singer were both very successful actors. but they also cared deeply about making a real difference in the lives of kids. In 1997, they started the I Am Your Child Foundation to help young children grow and be happy. In 2004, their dedication grew even stronger when they started Parents Action for Children, a nonprofit with two goals. First, to teach parents about how important a child's early years are through videos hosted by celebrities. And second, to push for policies that help families and kids all around the country with these projects. Reiner and Singer turned their personal beliefs into real change that will have an effect that goes well beyond Hollywood's gloss and glamour. The famous actor, director, producer, and activist Rob Reiner sat down for what would be his last interview. This made journalists, fans, and co-workers very upset. Reiner was known for his quick wit, deep understanding of human nature, and uncommon ability to blend comedy and heart. He approached this conversation with a seriousness that few could match. Reiner remarked, "I've always believed that stories can change people." His voice was solid yet had a quiet, thoughtful tone. Movies and stories are the bridges between hearts, whether they make you laugh, cry, or understand something. Reiner's eyes still shone with the same wonder and compassion that had inspired him to make some of Hollywood's most famous movies. Even when he was older, the talk started off easy with stories from his time on All in the Family. When he played Michael Meathead Stiles, "I was just a kid trying to find his voice on national television," Reiner said with a grin. "I had no clue that my character would become so important to culture." But as the interview went on, it became evident that this was more than just a look back at a long career. It was a meditation on time, love, loss, and the inevitable passing of time. Reiner talked honestly about his time in Hollywood, sharing the good and bad times he had while directing classics like This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally. He also talked about the personal problems and heartbreaks he had through behind the scenes. One moment in particular made everyone cry. Reiner thought about his family, the individuals who had always kept him grounded in the craziness of Hollywood. He said, "Family is everything," his voice thick with emotion. "I've loved and lost, and I've learned more from my mistakes than my victories. My kids, my partners, and my friends are the most important people in my life. Everything else seems empty without them." He talked about how happy he was to be a father and how close he was to his children. He also talked about how much he admired his daughter Tracy Reiner, whom he adopted when he married Penny Marshall, and how much he missed his late wife, whose influence still affected his personal and professional choices. Reiner also used the conversation to think about his work as a filmmaker and how important it is to be real and honest with your emotions. He said that when he directs, he wants the audience to feel. It's not about big gestures or fancy setups, it's about getting to the heart of what it is to be human. That's what keeps a narrative alive. That's what makes it last. He remembered how hard it was to keep his artistic integrity while still meeting business needs. The difficulty of making visionary ideas real in an industry that often puts profit ahead of substance. But through it all, Reiner had his usual hope and faith in the ability of movies to change lives. Reiner's thoughts on getting older, dying, and leaving a legacy were probably the most poignant. He added softly, "We all have an expiration date. Whether we want to or not, what counts is what we give during the time we have. The love we have for one another, the stories we tell, and the bravery we show when we're scared. I hope I've done enough, but I know that how I've changed other people's lives is what really matters." While he spoke, you could feel the end coming. It was a delicate reckoning with a life well lived, full of victories, regrets, laughter, and tears. People who were there were clearly moved by the end of the interview. Journalists who were getting ready for a normal career retrospective were crying because of how honest and human one of Hollywood's most famous people was. Reiner, who was always conscious of himself, smiled and remarked, "I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I just want kids to know that life is short and the best times are the ones we spend with other people." At that moment, the space seemed smaller, warmer, and much more valuable. It was as if Rob Reiner's essence, his genius, his comedy, and his big heart was silently leaving a mark on everyone who was lucky enough to see it. It was an interview that went beyond celebrity, professional milestones, and the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. It was a masterclass in humility, reflection, and the human experience. Everyone who was there left with a deep sense of gratitude and amazement. Rob Reiner's last comments stayed with people long after the cameras stopped shooting. They showed that he lived a full, passionate life with unshakable integrity. He said, "Tell the stories you need to tell. Always remember that even the tiniest acts can affect the world. Love deeply and laugh often." He said that his childhood household was nominally Jewish but not very religious, which was a reflection of the culture and social context of his family. Despite this, Reiner did undergo a bar mitzvah ceremony, a significant rite of passage in Jewish tradition, which he later regarded as more of a cultural milestone than a deeply spiritual experience. Carl Reiner, his father, was a famous comedian and television personality. He had also said that he had become more atheistic over time, especially as he thought about the Holocaust and what it meant for faith. Rob Reiner's personal vision of the world was probably impacted by this open admission of doubt and disbelief in the family. On the January 13, 2012 broadcast of Real Time with Bill Maher, Reiner said he was not religious and called himself an atheist. He explained that his ideology was based on skepticism and reason rather than tradition. But just because he didn't believe in organized religion, didn't mean he couldn't be interested in or appreciate spiritual notions that weren't part of the norm. Reiner said he was interested in Buddhism and that some of its ideas like mindfulness, compassion, and self-reflection spoke to him. This subtle approach showed how hard Reiner worked all his life to find a balance between his personal morals, philosophical questions, and cultural heritage without following any strict rules. Sadly, the last chapter of Reiner's life was full of frightening violence. The Los Angeles Fire Department said that on December 14, 2025, they found 2 dead people in the home of Reiner and Michelle Singer in Brentwood, Los Angeles, around 3:30 p.m. Reiner, 78, and his wife, Michelle, 68, were the casualties. Senior law enforcement officials acknowledged that both had stab wounds and that their deaths were immediately considered as apparent killings, which led to a criminal inquiry. Reports say that their daughter, Romy Reiner, found the bodies, which made the tragedy even worse for the family. The news shocked Hollywood and beyond as fans and co-workers grieved the untimely and violent deaths of 2 well-known people. Rob Reiner's death not only ended a long and successful career in film and advocacy, but it also left a huge hole in the lives of everyone who knew him, both personally and professionally. The circumstances of his and Michelle's deaths are still being looked into, which casts a dark cloud over a life full of creativity, kindness, and honest self-expression.